we're expecting Howard Beck of Bleacher Report to call in right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it Howard or is it BR1234567 on the phone line? Did it sound like a human being?
I'm not sure. It might be a bot. Unclear at the moment.
All right, let's go to the phone lines right now. Is this a bot or is this Howard Beck on the phone line here on the show?
I can verify as Howard Beck that this is the real Howard Beck with a blue check mark. Does my blue check mark show up on your caller ID?
I don't think so, but can you give yourself a blue check mark? I know so many people in the early days of Twitter were begging for it, but how are you, Howard?
I'm doing well. How do I know it's the real Rich Eisen?
Well, a great question. Well, I've got two people.
How do we know anything anymore?
I've got two people looking at me. Can you verify that this is me, Chris? Can you verify this is me?
I mean, you're not wearing
This
glasses.
is the Rich Eisen Show.
There's the drop as well. Prove it. Thank you. There we go. On the crazy meter, where does this rank 1 to 10 for you, Howard, in your history covering this league?
This is absolutely at least a 9 plus. But, the craziness of it, Rich, is really about whether or not this is Brian Colangelo responsible for these accounts. Now, he has said that he is not responsible for the ones that are in question. There was one that he did cop to. It's not unusual for NBA GMs, NBA coaches, NBA owners to have, what we call burner accounts or just simply anonymous accounts to follow and see what everybody's talking about. It doesn't necessarily, most of them are just lurkers, right? They're just there to read and see what people are saying. They're not interacting. They're not engaging. And if it's just the one that Brian Colangelo said was his in the Ringer story, then there's nothing else to this, and our crazy meter drops from a 9 to maybe a 6 because we still have to wonder, okay, well then who did all this, and why did the person who did this leave all these fingerprints that seems to implicate Brian Colangelo? Was he being set up? I mean, I know that sounds like a stretch, but look, anything's possible at this point, and I will say this: I have been in touch with somebody close to Brian Colangelo within the last hour or so who says absolutely positively was not him. And, I take that person at their word. It's somebody who's definitely someone I've known a long time who's credible. And, we'll see where the Sixers investigation goes, because if it's not Brian Colangelo responsible for those accounts, somebody with inside information seemingly has been responsible for either maintaining those accounts or feeding somebody, whoever's running those accounts. So there's still, even if you can determine through just digital footprints that it's not Brian Colangelo, you still have to wonder or figure out who is responsible for that information getting to those accounts.
Well, if it isn't Colangelo, then it's somebody that knows his history and where he's been in previous stops along his career and knows specific people that he's come across in personal business in life to place as followers on these accounts, people that these accounts follow. And then this morning I saw somebody in the media. I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately, but I did see this on Twitter, and I'm not really one of those people to say I see it online, I believe it, that they tried to change the passwords on these accounts, and every single one of the phone numbers that are associated with the account that came back, checked this phone number for the code, all had the same last 2 digits. So there's a lot of there, Howard.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of there on this front.
Right. No, it would seem that way, Rich. I don't disagree at all. All I can tell you is that somebody close to Brian has told me definitively it wasn't him, and they're just hoping that the investigation has the ability, with just the digital forensics, to be able to at least disprove that it was Brian. Whether it's somebody else internally or somebody on his behalf or just somebody else with information within the Sixers, that would be the question then. And yes, there's so much that points to Brian Colangelo. I think if we were in a courtroom, we would call this all circumstantial evidence.
Yes.
And whether that's compelling enough, I don't know. But I'm one who I tend to have a high bar on these things. Like I don't disagree with you that you look at all these things. I had the same reaction everybody else did. I read it and I go, man, this looks really damning. This looks very, if not definitive, it certainly is pointing a very strong finger in one direction. And I'm not dismissing any of that, but I have a high bar in my own mind about, okay, what qualifies as proof before we throw a guy's career out the door.
Bleacher Report's Howard Beck here on the Rich Eisen Show. Do you think that if it is him, that it does rise to the level of termination, of career-ruining moment? I mean, as you know, in this day and age, Howard, when a story comes out, you consume it, you think, oh, my God, this is a horrible story, or you think this is a bizarre story in this case, and then you start wondering, like, what is the actual fitting penalty for this crime, if there is a crime at all, right? So where do you think this lies if it does come out that all of the accounts are Brian Colangelo's, Howard?
Yeah, if that were the case,
right,
I have to believe that they probably end up terminating, or that he ends up resigning, where it's a mutual parting, because the embarrassment brought on the franchise by this entire saga and also by the information in those tweets would be tough to overcome. And you need your general manager, who is one of the faces of your franchise and one of the most important ones when it comes to making trades, recruiting free agents, dealing with people all throughout the league. Credibility is key. And if it were proven that it were Brian Colangelo, then you're losing standing, you're losing credibility. You're certainly losing with your own players, some of whom, if it were him, you've besmirched. And so that's a problem. I don't see how you survive that if they can prove that it was him.
And it's not just any free agency period that's coming up too, Howard, right? I mean, in all seriousness, with the Sixers announcing that they're looking into this, an independent investigation. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a special counsel and if Colangelo needs to recuse himself, blah, 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 if you want to keep on mirroring real life here in a way. The fact is that there are just 4 weeks until the greatest free agent in the history of free agency hits the market once again, with a lot of people connecting dots between LeBron and Philadelphia. I mean, this is something they've got to clean up. There's a draft too, obviously. They've got to clean this thing up in the next 3-4 weeks, don't you think? Fast?
I would say sooner than that. Yeah, I mean, this needs to take days, not weeks. A week or two maybe, but look, the finals could be over a week from Friday. Like, if it's a sweep, and that's definitely in play, the finals could be over, 9 days from now, 10 days. So I think they need to clear this up as fast as humanly possible. And whether that's possible or not, in terms of what an investigation takes, we're all just guessing here. I don't know how deep you can go on this. I don't know what the forensic investigative capabilities are of the Sixers or whoever they hire to get into digital fingerprints and try to figure out how to track this stuff and either prove that it is a particular person or disprove that it's Brian Colangelo. I don't know what that requires, but. Yes, they need to get this done fast. There's a lot at stake in this offseason.
Well, you got to figure if there's a source, again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, if there's a source that the Ringer had that's an artificial intelligence that coagulated all of these coordinates, you have to figure the Sixers can hire somebody to do the same thing. Howard Beck of Bleacher Report here. Before I let you go here into that good day, great story you wrote on the Draymond Green relationship and how it was born. I'd love for you to give you the floor about the article that everybody should seek out on Bleacher Report right now on the moment when that relationship was forged by fire, in a way.
Yeah, no, and thank you for the kind words on that, Rich. So everybody knows about, everybody who's followed the NBA or followed sports remembers that infamous clash between Draymond Green and Steve Kerr at halftime of a game in Oklahoma in 2016. Where Lisa Salters of ESPN had overheard some screaming. She reports it immediately. Turns out it was Draymond Green screaming at Steve Kerr, who was screaming back. Green at one point looks as if he's going to go after Steve Kerr physically. And, this was certainly the low point of their relationship. And I think everything that spun forward from that, including a story by ESPN magazine 6 months later, was all indicating about or sort of suggesting, hey, look, they've got a Draymond Green problem. How are they going to solve this problem? Can they survive Draymond Green? Is he the guy who might break this dynasty up before it even gets going? And, this is all in the same season, of course, that he got suspended in the finals and they lose to Cleveland. That saga, that particular moment in Oklahoma, that stretch of time, as it turns out, was the most critical time in what forged a really deep bond between the two. They are now really close friends. Draymond Green told me for that story that Steve Kerr is right up there with Tom Izzo and Draymond's own mom in terms of people who truly get him, who he truly trusts, who he can tell anything to. And he says that Steve Kerr is his friend for life. That this is somebody he will call anytime in the future about anything going on far from basketball. And it's because they had that breakthrough, that moment where they knew, basically wanted to kill each other and could have pulled this team apart, allowed them to then come back a few days later, have a really great heart-to-heart talk where they established trust, and they broke through it. And ever since then, that's just been something they've been nurturing ever since. And these guys, they are as tight as can be. And Steve Kerr has through this learned how to manage Draymond's obviously very unique personality. Draymond's learned how to read Steve Kerr better. They both say they're better for it. It's a really incredible evolution of these two men, and I was fascinated by it, and just privileged that they both were opening up about it.
Yeah, and it was a great article, certainly in light of what happened in Game 1 of the series against the Rockets, the Western Conference Final, Howard, where it took all of 62 seconds for Draymond Green to elbow James Harden in the head, and I thought to myself, that's a flashback to a Game 4 of the Finals, right, of that very year, where Draymond lost control of his leg into a place where King James and we all, as men in the world, feel it. That kind of diffused a situation where Kerr kind of brought over Draymond Green and just kind of had like a whisper conversation with him, and nothing came of it after that.
Yeah, and you could point to a few different moments, whether it's in this postseason or the last, couple of years where, when Draymond Green is having one of those moments where he's, a little bit on edge, it's whatever the mood he's in that night, or if he's just overly amped up. And Steve Kerr doesn't, he doesn't call him out. He doesn't overreact or try to rein him in. He understands that there's a line that Draymond has to toe for Draymond to be himself. Like, that intensity is part of who he is. And we see this all the time in sports. There was the let Rodman be Rodman, and various individuals over time, where to get the best out of them, you've got to let them express themselves in a certain way. And sometimes that means towing the line, stepping over the line. But the trust that is there now is that Steve Kerr knows that Draymond will rein himself in before things get to be damaging, before it sinks them. And we haven't seen that happen since that suspension in the finals a couple of years ago. So I think it just shows that's Draymond's evolution there, and that Steve Kerr had a big role in that. In once he earned his trust, then he could, I think, help him kind of understand where the lines are.
Yeah, great article on a great read on a very crucial relationship that makes the Warriors as great as they are. Howard, really appreciate it. Appreciate the conversation. We'll chat during the finals.
Absolutely, Rich. Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
You got that's Howard Beck of Bleacher Report, at Howard Beck on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.